Our culture influences the way we perceive the world. In other words, we see the world and react to it in ways that our culture has taught us. In order to fully understand one's culture, it is beneficial to view a native's perspective of the world through their own cultural lens. Polynesian culture is made up of beliefs and practices of the ethno-geographic group of Pacific islands known as Polynesia. Polynesia comes from the Greek word poly, which means many, and nisoi, meaning islands.
Polynesia makes up of a total of 1,000 different islands in the Polynesian Triangle. The triangle is drawn with Hawaii at the apex, New Zealand to the southwest, and Easter Island to the southeast.
When the Europeans came to Polynesia, they sought to change many facets of how they went about doing things. They did this by persuasively just changing whatever they could, and thus the culture was very much strained by that.
Many aspects of the ancient culture have changed since the Europeans first landed, especially the missionaries who changed a lot of religious aspects and things like that of the culture. And back at that time, religion was the main makeup of most cultures, what they lived their life by and what dictated what they can and cannot do. Religion was a strong influence in ancient Polynesian culture. It affected Polynesian lifestyle, habits, work methods, social policy, and law. The Kapu system was the religious force of the Polynesian people. The Kapu system was kind of the system that was put in place in the societies of ancient Polynesian culture because religion made up a vast majority of what was the norm in society. And that was before the Europeans came. Polynesian traditions that we often find associated with the culture today include dancing, music, tattooing, and religion, primarily the belief in multiple gods. These traditions were greatly suppressed by the Christian missionaries who came and settled on these islands.
In the past, marriage partners were chosen by the family, but today young people have greater freedom in choosing partners. The tradition of celebrating marriages includes feasts and festivities, which still endure today. The native Hawaiian form of a luau is something seen more frequently as a tourist event, as opposed to a regular occurrence in local culture. Some exceptions apply, such as a birthday luau or a wedding ceremony. Premarital sexual relations were typically very casual in most Polynesian societies. However, once the permanent relationship became established, casual sexual relations outside of the relationship were not permitted. The choice of a marriage partner is less fixed than in many cultures of the world. In the times before Christian influence, the preference in some Polynesian cultures was cross-cousin marriage.
I'm going to talk mostly about social class and mate selection in the Polynesian culture. In ancient Polynesian culture, specifically Hawaii, we look at mate selection as a common practice, and they did this through it was mostly underlined in the caste system, that's spelled C-A-S-T-E. The system was how natives distinguished different social classes in their society. Each class had assigned responsibilities and duties that they had to perform because they were in that class of society. Ali was the royal class that consisted of mostly chiefs in society, whom were able to be in close relationship with the gods they worshipped because they possessed the divine power of mana. This was said to be a supernatural force that was within people, objects, and or spirits. The next class was the priestly class, or the kahuna in Hawaiian. Religious figures were within the village that would tend to temples and perform religious acts amongst the village made up the kahuna class. The lowest class, the makianana, or commoner class, consisted of mostly the labor force in Hawaiian culture.
Throughout the Polynesian world, there is a traditional division of labor along the lines of gender. Men were responsible for fishing, construction, and protecting their families, while women were responsible for gardening, manufacturing basketry items, cooking, cleaning their household, and taking care of their children. Since men were expected to have a greater income, this was translated into men having greater control over household decision-making.
Common household practices in Polynesian culture. At about the age of 16, a woman is bared much responsibility and is expected to undertake completion of household tasks and care for the younger children, much more than any of the adults. Elderly respect is a rather large expectation. Polynesian families display a stern yet loving technique as to which they raise their children. Children are sure to complete tasks asked of them and never really allow behavior to be an issue because they take on full responsibility. Children are raised to take more of the initiative upon themselves to complete what tasks need to be done. Scolding is more prominent and praise is limited or null as a whole.
Social interactions here in the United States are somewhat different than that in Polynesian culture. When we talk to our peers and friends here, eye contact can be seen as a sign of attentiveness and that we're actually paying attention to what they're saying. But in the Polynesian culture, too much eye contact between younger and older people or people of the opposite sex are seen as a sign of disrespect. Lowering your eyes, however, can be seen as a sign of respect to those of authority. When you're talking to someone of Polynesian descent, look for clues. Know how much they're making eye contact with you so you can make the right call. In the Polynesian culture, they have a thing called bond friendship. Now, what this is basically a ceremony and a name exchange between two people. So, who comes to this event? Well, the kinsmen of the bond friends, the friends of the bond friends, and the deacon of the Protestant church. Now, a meal is to follow. Well, who provides that food? The kinsman of one of the bond friends will provide the wine and the pig, and the kinsman of the other bond friend will provide the fish, the vegetables, and the beer. So the ceremony starts, and the deacon begins by reading the Bible. Once that's finished, he then gives a prayer that will allow the friends to have a long, sustainable, and faithful friendship for the rest of their life. Then there's a ring exchange. Now this is where it gets a little bit different. You see, only 2 men or 2 women become bond friends, not a man and a woman. So instead of becoming man and wife, well, they become friends for life. So once they exchange rings, they then exchange names. So for example, if I, Hannah, am becoming friends with Amy, Amy will call me Amy and I will call her Hannah. So we basically just swap names. Once that's finished, the meal will be blessed, and then the 2 bond friends will sit at the head of the table and share plates. So there's a story that I read about bond friendship that really gives you an insight into how strong this friendship and bond really is. So there was a woman who lost her husband and her children but ended up getting remarried. However, she was past the point of having children but wanted them again. So she went to her bond friend, asked if she could bear her a child, and the bond friend said yes. So that friend went to her son and asked, hey, will you give my friend your daughter? Well, the son refused to give up his first daughter. He just did not want to do that. But he did, however, promise her the son that his wife was currently pregnant with. So once the son was born, that child was put up for adoption. So you can see through this amazing friendship of how close these people become, something as huge as letting them adopt your child can happen.
Students begin in the education system funded by the government at the age of 6, and they are taught to read and write the French language. Prior to this, at the age of 3, children attend a non-compulsory preschool, which are provided by the nursery schools. According to the last census, there were 31, 3 private, and 28 public. There are primary, secondary, non-government, vocational, and higher level forms of education. The primary consists of elementary schools, the basis of their learning, and the secondary consists of 2 stages, the junior and senior high schools. The lei is a common universal symbol of love, friendship, celebration, honor, and the more commonly known greeting. A lei is a symbol of aloha. Almost every occasion is considered lei-worthy. May 1st, 1928 started Hawaii's Lei Day, which is celebrated every year. In Hawaii, it is more commonly known as May Day. It is a full day of celebration with parades, hula, and music. On this day, everyone in Hawaii is encouraged to wear a lei.
Polynesia has a rich tradition of vocal and instrumental music. Some types of musical expression have been lost, but some new ones have been created as a result of missionary activity in the region. Christian hymns have had considerable influence in the style of vocal music in Polynesia. One of the most well-known Polynesian musical instruments is the ukulele. It is the Hawaiian version of the Portuguese mandolin, which came to the islands with the Portuguese immigrants in the 1870s. The primary use of the Hawaiian flute and drums were to accompany their dance, known as the hula. Hula was developed in the Hawaiian Islands by the Polynesians who originally settled there.
Through the means of dance, expression, and music and the folklore, they have been able to sustain their culture. Many people believe that the dances of Polynesia, including the hula, are just simply dances to entertain and to just make people happy. Although, although that is one of the points of it, more so it is meant to teach.